Hi, my name is Misha and I'm writing a book. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. If you've been on my channel before, you might have seen a past video that talked about the role that music plays in writing stories and in my creativity. I thought I would almost make a bit of a part two of that, not necessarily around how music shapes my creativity, but more so around how dreams also play a role within my creativity. I feel like the biggest question that people get, that creatives get when they are making things, is where do you get your ideas? What inspires you? For the most part, it's a range of things. It's daydreams, it's instincts. It's oftentimes so hard to explain where these ideas come from. Where do any ideas come from? I see this more as things that often inspire me as opposed to what necessarily creates this idea. But when it comes to dreams, I find that most of the time, my dreams do play quite a big role in storytelling, in my ideas, in understanding the layout of a specific scene that I'm going to write. Sometimes it comes in advance of the story, and sometimes it's in the middle of writing it, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll just jot it down and I'll understand that it's for a story. Other times it's that dream that has led to the understanding that I want to write something more longer form because this idea is creating a lot of other ideas for me, and I think that this could become a something. I thought I'd maybe talk a little bit about my relationship with sleep and my relationship with dreams, because that's really evolved over the years, and it's also been a critical part of why I'm able to use these or repurpose some of my dreams for stories. I think if I were to look back at when I was a teenager, I wouldn't have understood it in the same way that I understood it a lot better when I was in my early 20s, and now I am almost 30. In terms of sleeping and dreams, I was a insomniac for most of my life. A lot of that I would say is due to fear of sleep to some extent. I still kind of struggle with this quite a bit. I struggle with chronic sleep paralysis. I have for most of my life that I can remember since I was a kid. It's something that my mom struggles with. It's something that my sister has quite a bit. To a lesser degree, I think both me and my mom struggle with it a little bit more. It's a bit of a more heightened experience. And then on top of that, I have also been someone who has had reoccurring nightmares for most of my life as well. And I think that really tainted my relationship to sleep quite a bit because I looked at sleep as a more disturbing space that I wanted to avoid at all costs. It's still a relationship that I am trying to manage all the time. I'm still trying to unpack and work through, and I think I've gotten a lot better at seeing sleep and understanding sleep as something that is critical and helpful for my well-being. But for a long time, it felt like it was almost a detriment to my well-being. So I was really interested in dreams since I was little, just because this kept happening and I was having these recurring nightmares. I was struggling with sleep paralysis pretty consistently. I wanted to get to know more about dreams. I was just really interested in understanding other people's experiences. I was also really curious about analyzing dreams. That was something that was quite big in my family as well, to analyze dreams, to understand the symbols in dreams and to interpret them in a certain way. As I was growing up, the cultural significance of dreams was a lot about foreshadowing what is to come. And so if you were someone who had more reoccurring nightmares, like me, it's almost a bit of a bad omen and to some degree, and that's kind of how it was understood. And so I was constantly in fear of sleeping and dreaming and understanding that, if I dream more, I will get these reoccurring nightmares that will symbolize something bad that is on its way, and that really terrified me. What really transformed that, I think, is conversations that I had in therapy. And my therapist is also quite spiritual as well. And so she's very keen to also analyze and interpret dreams and understand the symbolism within them and breaking them down in a different way than I think that we did within my own family. That really changed things. And I started going to therapy when I was 17, and I was able to get a pro bono spot for about 4 years while I was in university because I wasn't able to afford it. And that therapist was very kind to be able to take me in for free for 4 years. And I actually still see the same therapist today. We just see each other virtually. She was a big part in transforming how I understood sleep and how I understood dreams. The questions that she would ask me would always start with, if this dream was a movie, what would you call it? And that would really help you understand, I guess, the theme of the dream or how you've interpreted the dream and how you would sum it up to some degree. We would talk a little bit about what that title meant to me, why I chose that title. Coming up with those titles was hard, but I would just make it up and be like, well, whatever, this is it. And then we would go in and she would ask a follow-up question around, what is the most intriguing part of this dream for you? Or what are you most curious about in this dream? Is there any specific moment that feels like it's highlighted for you or significant for you that we can kind of dive into and discuss a little bit further? And so we'd kind of dig into it that way. And then she would usually ask another question sometimes around, if you were to change anything within this dream, what would look different? And we would talk about that as well. With this type of exercise, doing it kind of again and again, especially when I brought up dreams in therapy, because I would feel so haunted by them, it really helped shape a new understanding of dreams because I started to really understand them as stories in and of themselves. And that was very critical to how they actually help me now, because I've never looked at them in that way. I've always looked at them as this doom and gloom imagery that you get that is foreshadowing a particular fate that is probably not favorable, and and it's some sort of a premonition for a bad thing that is going to happen. So I'm glad that that is no longer fully my belief system around dreams. I also started exploring Carl Jung's work quite a bit. Carl Jung was a psychiatrist who studied dreams quite extensively. I found it fascinating. I really wanted to reconfigure this relationship that I had with dreams and sleep. Carl Jung actually saw dreams as messages and symbols from your unconscious mind. They're meant to reveal some hidden truths about your conscious mind. That was also a very interesting analysis and understanding of dreams that I also wanted to kind of take on and dive deeper into, and also the way that we looked at it and studied it within therapy as well in that space. It really shifted my relationship quite a bit to understand it that way and to interpret dreams to understand what is actually the deeper subconscious or unconscious message that's trying to be revealed right now. What am I burying quite deep inside me that actually I need to break down or interpret or better understand so that it doesn't live back there, but I'm able to confront it and face it and also start working through it. All of that context is very critical to how I use dreams and how I understand dreams now. It's very much the understanding of your subconscious or unconscious mind, but also I see them as stories, and I love dissecting stories. And so anytime I really have any sort of nightmare dream, I do write it down. For the most part, a lot of dreams do end up in the stories or the novels or like manuscripts that I have written and continue to write. Actually, the one that I am currently writing right now, I had a dream that actually sparked what some of the core plot or relationship within the story was meant to understand. Most of my dreams are quite scary, and so I was thinking about whether I should give an example, but I might not, because they're just a little bit disturbing. A lot of times when I have a dream, and for this dream in particular that I had, what it brought up was themes around death. When I woke up from that dream, I felt quite haunted at first, and I wrote it down. And it was the following day that I started asking a lot of follow-up questions to myself about, what if one person saw death as something that is more connected to freedom because their life feels extremely painful, and a contemplation about whether there is a set amount of suffering you need to endure before you get to experience that level of freedom, and another person maybe understands it as justice. And so that was something that inspired this book quite a bit, is a relationship to death. The beginning of this book, it automatically starts on the 20th anniversary of her mother's death, and so the protagonist is looking at both of their lives and comparing them in a lot of ways and seeing whether she has made the right decisions or whether she has tried to veer year away from living the same life as her mother and becoming her mother that she has created a life that she doesn't want altogether. That's a real exploration within the story that I'm writing. I was looking into different authors that also have been inspired by dreams, like Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. She wrote that she dreamed of a plot for a quote-unquote tale that haunted her midnight pillow, which was in the introduction of the novel's 1831 edition. So she dreamed of this scientist who created a life, but then was horrified by its creation. Stephen King also was inspired to write Dreamcatcher based on a dream that he had, or several dreams that he had. After a car accident, he was bedridden and he dreamed of four men in a cabin, which then inspired some of the characters that would then show up within this book. Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, also came up with the idea while recovering in bed with a hemorrhage and had this like opium-induced nightmare that inspired this book. It was really interesting to find other authors who also explored dreams quite a bit and saw the imagery within them as this inspiration for a scene or a character. That's something that I like to do as well. My relationship with sleep right now is something that I'm still working on. I am a lot better at it. My relationship to dreams is a little bit more manageable and I understand it in a different way now, and I hope to continue to over time. I'm constantly working on shifting that experience for myself, and I think using them and repurposing them within stories and making sense of them in that context, it's been a really healing journey for me as well, and also a very fascinating one. It makes me want to dream even more, which is a huge shift from where I was at when I was younger. I'm so curious to know what your relationship to dreams and to sleep has been throughout your life, and whether your dreams also contribute to the stories that you tell in your writing or your prose. Let me know in the comments below if that's something that you also like to do, and if you don't, because a lot of people also don't remember their dreams. I'm curious about what other elements of your life inspire your storytelling. And that's all I have for you today. And I'll talk to you all very soon. Bye.